You built the business, you hit the numbers, people say that you're winning, but you're still stressing out at 4 a.m. and worrying about what's next. Why? Because you figured out how to climb the first mountain, but no one told you that there was a second mountain to ascend. So if you will walk with me for about 15 minutes, I'll explain what that means and how it will set you free to enjoy the success that you've earned. How you can scale your business without the constant stress and pressure. Quick note, a disclaimer, this video is not for everybody. So if you're still figuring out how to grow your business, building your business, cash flow is the main thing on your mind, you don't know how to delegate or hire yet, you're still trying to dial in systems, this isn't for you. But if you have already built it, if you're doing over $1 million in revenue, you have the team, you have the systems, but you are dealing with that undercurrent of stress. You're still checking your phone compulsively at dinner, or you're snapping at your kid over something trivial. If you've hit that revenue milestone that you had in mind, but you still don't feel successful, if you've just kind of accepted that chronic stress is just how it is for successful entrepreneurs, then this is for you. Because what I'm about to show you is that there is a second mountain to climb, one that's still about your business, still the same goals, still allows you to grow, but it's a completely different internal experience. My name is Blake. I'm going to try not to get hit by any vehicles, but I want to dive in and talk about this with you. First, by telling you a bit of my story. So 7 years ago, I was working for one of the top voices in productivity in the country, and I was teaching and coaching with some of the fastest growing companies in America. I was also working less than 40 hours per week. I had perfect work-life balance, really by any metric. And then I got shingles from chronic stress in my early 30s. And I remember my doctor looking at me like, dude, you're 32, family life's good, you got a great job, you're not working that much. What are you so stressed about? And I didn't know what to tell him, because externally everything looked right, but internally there was this constant undercurrent of stress. I'd lie in bed at night, physically exhausted, but my brain wouldn't shut off. I'd be running these scenarios in mind, or I would be closing my laptop on a Friday and feel guilty for not getting more done. I can remember Elena, my wife, she'd say, "Are you hearing me?" And I'd say, "Oh, yeah, totally." But I mean, we both knew that I was mentally somewhere else. And that's the thing about chronic stress, is that you don't know what you're dealing with usually until something serious happens. You see, until I got shingles, I just kind of thought that's how it was. I thought I actually was doing good, that I was Mr. Productivity. But once my body waved the white flag, I went looking for answers. And I worked with coaches, I studied neuroscience, I practiced meditation techniques, I did all manner of productivity hacks and mindset work that I could get my hands on. But what finally changed everything for me was when I discovered something simple, but I learned it at a deeper level. It was that my circumstances don't create my stress. It was my attachment to how things should be. I should be further along by now. This should have gone differently. I should be able to handle this better. Those invisible shoulds were running in the background of my nervous system, consuming my mental capacity. My business, my family, my clients, they were getting the leftovers of that, that leftover bandwidth at the end of the day. But once I understood that, once I learned how to systematically release those should attachments, everything shifted. My chronic stress disappeared. My sleep got a lot better. My energy, of course, then improved. But, my marriage got so much better. I wasn't even expecting that. I was hoping it would help my career, but my marriage got better. My connection with my family, my kids got better. The smaller everyday decisions became less taxing, and the bigger picture the direction of where I wanted to go big picture, well, that became crystal clear to me. And I realized that this is what the second mountain is. It's not achieving more, it's replacing stress and worry as the fuel source for growth. Here's what most successful entrepreneurs do when they feel the way that I just described. They try to scale the first mountain even higher. So it looks like this. Well, once I hit 5 million, then I'll finally feel successful. Or once I hire that A+ COO or CMO that can do all the marketing for me, then I'll finally have the bandwidth. Once I get the next system in place, I'll have time to be fully present. Or maybe after I take this, vacation, 2 weeks away from the business, I'll come back and be fine. Does that sound familiar? So what do? You set bigger goals, you work harder, you push through. But here's what you've probably noticed. It takes more energy than it should. Making decisions feels harder. You're grinding through your day, and by 3 p.m. you're exhausted, even though you didn't do anything that crazy. And when you finally hit a goal, when you do hit those goals, you feel almost nothing. Maybe a brief moment of relief, then right back to the weight. And here's why. When you're carrying disappointment and frustration from the past, or you're carrying a worry about your future, your brain is literally running multiple programs at once. It's like if you were using Photoshop on your computer with like 47 Chrome tabs open and you get that spinning wheel of death. That's what it's like in your brain and in your body. The one program, your conscious program, is trying to execute today's objectives. But then there's all these other programs, all of those shoulds are replaying in your mind. From what should have been to what has to happen. All that's playing in the background. I should be further along, or that deal should have closed. We should have hit this revenue goal by now. Or what happens if AI takes over? Am I being a good enough parent? This new CMO hire really better work. Your brain treats that gap between where you are and where you should be as a threat. Not like a tiger is chasing you type of threat, but it's a threat nonetheless. And it puts you in a low-grade survival mode every single day. And here's the problem with survival mode. You're literally operating with less cognitive capacity. The part of your brain that makes strategic decisions, that sees opportunities, that thinks creatively, that part of your brain actually goes, at least in part, offline. So it's not because you're lazy, you're not unfocused, you're paying a hidden tax just to function. And this is why it feels like you're pushing a boulder uphill, because you kind of are. And here's the brutal part. This explains why you can crush a goal and feel almost nothing. Why you have a hard time celebrating yourself or celebrating your team members. Your brain isn't celebrating a win. It's just checking off a debt. So when you finally do cross the 5 million mark, your brain doesn't say, yay, new achievement unlocked. It says, cool, finally, we're where we should have been 2 years ago. So I can take a breath, but not a big one. There's zero dopamine hit. It's just relief that you paid off the debt that you owed. So what do? The only thing you know how to do, right? Set a bigger goal, push harder, try to outrun that feeling. But you can't outrun. You can't outrun what's in your nervous system. And this is the trap of the first mountain. You keep climbing higher, hoping the next milestone will finally bring you peace. But the peace never comes, because you're still carrying the weight of every should that didn't happen, and every worry that may happen. So let's talk about a different way. Here's what I discovered and what I now teach my clients. There's something that I call the law of mirroring. Your external world, your business, your schedule, your relationships, it eventually mirrors your internal world. In other words, you will only be as free as your nervous system allows you to be. You will only be as free as your nervous system allows you to be. So if you're still carrying the weight of past disappointments, if you're still attached to how things should have gone, if you're still operating from negative reinforcement instead of creative possibility, your business will mirror that back to you. You'll stay the bottleneck, even though you have a great team. You'll struggle with delegation, even though you know how to delegate. You'll set boundaries and then break them over and over. Not because you lack self-discipline, not because you need better systems, but because your nervous system is still running all those old programs. See, the second mountain isn't about achieving more. It's about releasing the attachments consuming your capacity. So when you do that, you can finally operate freely at your full potential. And here's what's fascinating. When you do this work, when you systematically release those attachments, the law of mirroring starts working in your favor. The delegation tools you've learned, they suddenly click and you can get out of the weeds. You naturally set better boundaries and keep them, right? Without the internal fight or guilt. Your team starts performing better because you're not this anxious bottleneck anymore. You make faster, clearer decisions because your prefrontal cortex isn't paying that hidden tax anymore. And here's the kicker. Even though the second mountain, it's, how's your internal world? The cool thing is that your business actually grows faster on the second mountain. Not despite the internal work you do, but because of it. When your nervous system is free, you have access to your full cognitive capacity. It's like you didn't even realize how smart you were. You move from negative reinforcement, running from pain, to positive reinforcement, creating from possibility. You go from survival mode to creative mode. You no longer need to, you don't need to stay in that stressed and worried state to fuel your productivity. You can finally operate from peace. That's the second mountain. So here's the systematic process that I use with my clients. I call it the release method, and it is built on one core insight. Your chronic stress isn't coming from out there, from your circumstances. It's coming from your attachment to how things should be. I should be further along, or this should have gone differently. My team should be performing better. These invisible shoulds are running in the background, consuming your mental capacity. So the method is simple. We identify all of those specific attachments that are consuming your capacity, and we release them systematically. And we help you integrate that into how you operate. So it's not therapy, it's not meditation, it's not just another affirmation, it's not just becoming aware of these things and going, oh, I see how that is insightful. This is much more like going to the gym. It's a mental gym workout that produces measurable results. And you learn with time to catch these attachments in real time. So before they can create a 3-day decision spiral or cause you to be mentally absent even though you've taken off work to be at your kid's game, you're gonna learn the 5-step process to release them. Not manage them, not cope with them, not just get an insight about them, but actually release them. And here's what makes it work. This is one of the reasons I like this in my coaching practice, is because we get to work with your mind, with your thinking, not against it. So we're not trying to stop thinking, clear every thought, or bypass it with positive thoughts. We're going to use logic to show your brain what was always true, which is that circumstances are inherently neutral. It's your attachment that has made them so emotionally charged. And when the attachment is gone, the stress is gone. So, are you still with me? I want to show you what this looks like in practice. One of my first clients, a successful CEO doing over 2 million in revenue, he came to me exhausted. His energy level, he said, was about a 3 out of 10. His focus was a 4 out of 10. And here's what he told me on his intake form. He said, just got hit by a stick. He said, my biggest worry is not growing my company as I feel I should, thereby letting myself down and letting my team down. I teach people how to balance work and life, and yet I seem to be struggling. Does that sound familiar? So we started working together, and I taught him the release method. I gave him the tools so that he could use it anytime he needed to, plus started doing some coaching sessions with him. And 30 days later, this is what happened. He had a house deal that fell through during an inspection. The family car got totaled by a deer, and repairs were really expensive. And he found out that he didn't make a top 100 industry, an industry top 100 list, rather, that he'd been nominated for. And that same week, he had to make a year-end compensation decision that resulted in everyone in the company making more, but him making less. I'm smiling because maybe you thought, oh, Blake's about to tell me about how this magically fixed this dude's life and everything in the external world got better in 30 days. No, that's not really how life works. You probably figured that out by now. And really, that's not what the base of the second mountain is like. You see, previously, any one of those things would have derailed him mentally in the past. But here's what he wrote me. He actually wrote me an email about 30 days in, and he said, he told me those things that had happened, and he said, typically my desire for control would have resulted in my being on edge, irritable, and completely unfocused. However, I've approached each of these through the lens of what I can and can't control, and the other stuff I've been successful at letting go of, and that's been huge, and I've moved through it quickly to a place of calm. And about the not making that industry top 100 list, he said, did it suck? Absolutely. But I quickly reflected on how not being on the list could serve me and defined my next action. I moved on. And then about the compensation stuff for his company, he said, I was able to think more clearly about the business decision and less about the emotion. I made a good business decision. And the closing line of his email, he said this: instead of trying to become the person that I want to be, I'm focused on being that person. I'm not waiting for permission. I'm not being passive. I'm doing and being. That's 30 days in. From the never feeling like I'm enough to handling multiple crises in the same week with calm and clarity. That's the second mountain. And it's not just him. I actually just had another client this weekend. She's a successful founder, multiple businesses, great stuff on paper. She came to me and she had said when she started working with me that she accepted a lot of chronic stress as normal without realizing it. And she now has released just 4 attachments. We just started working together. And she says, I have more energy, less striving, and I'm spending my time in alignment with my priorities. And the results are showing up at home too. The pattern is clear. When you release what's consuming your capacity, everything else begins to get easier, because that's just how your brain works. So what I want you to take from this, if you've climbed the first mountain, if you've built the business, you've hit the numbers, your friends would say you've made it, but you're still carrying the weight, you still can't turn your brain off, you're still missing moments while you're in the same room, you're not broken. You're not doing it wrong. You just didn't know that there was a second mountain to climb. Most successful entrepreneurs accept the chronic stress. They just say, hey, well, this is just how it is. Of course, you've always got to worry about cash flow. You've always got to open the laptop at 10 p.m. once the family goes to bed. And they keep trying to scale the first mountain higher, hoping that the next milestone will finally bring the peace and that freedom feeling that they've been craving. But there's a different path. The second mountain isn't about achieving more. It's about releasing the attachments consuming your capacity so that you can operate freely, fully, as smartly as you are. And when you do, the law of mirroring starts working in your favor. Your business grows faster, your team performs better, your decisions get clearer, less taxing on you to make. So I work with a small number of clients at any one time. I only do private one-on-one coaching with this right now. We work together for 6 months at a time. We meet usually twice a month and work through the release method with coaching and also with a specific tool that I've made that's responsive and customized for each client. So the goal here is to operate at full capacity in your business while being genuinely present for your family. This hat I'm wearing, it says, "These are the good old days." I don't know if it's mirrored and you can't read it, but this is a reminder. These are the good old days. I don't want you to miss yours. This is for leaders who already built the thing. They're ready to discover what's next. And if you want the pricing, the timeline, what's included in the coaching that I offer, whether or not this is right for you, I want you to do this. Send me an email with the subject Second Mountain. Second Mountain. And I'll send you the details you need to make an informed decision or to connect on a call with me personally. But even if you don't email me, if you're just thinking on this, as my hat's reminding me, I want to remind you, these are the good old days. Now is the time to figure this out. Don't wait until you get shingles or until, like one client I had, you go to the ER because you think the big one is happening. Don't wait for that. Don't let these moments pass you by trying to scale that first mountain. Thanks for watching.